Hi, I'm Jay, and I'm here to show you how to install the EcoCube Heat Pump onto a Vortex Nitro spa with an SV controller. Later in this video, we'll show you how to install it on a Fisher Spa as well. One of the first things that we're going to talk about is the lockout device that we're going to need. For this spa, because it's a 15 amp plug and play spa, we use a lockout device here that goes over the connector end of the cabling. Not all spas will have plug and play. If yours is hardwired, you would need to lock out the power source in another method. Always use safety glasses when you're using any power tools. We recommend using a cordless drill for this. We have a Phillips tip for removing the screws off the spa cabinet. We have a hole saw for making the holes in the cabinet. We have a small drill bit. Then we have a pen for marking where those holes are going to be, a tape measure. The EcoCube kit, which we're going to talk about in just a second, comes with 5 meters of hose for each run, so a total of 10 meters of hose. One going out to the EcoCube and one coming back to the spa. And so you may not use that. In fact, in this installation, which is a back-to-back installation where the EcoCube is right up next to the spa, we're gonna wanna cut a lot of that excess hose off and not use it for efficiency. But if you were gonna install the EcoCube away from the spa, you wouldn't need to cut as much hose off as we're going to. So we have a hacksaw, or you could use a PVC cutter, which is really handy for cutting the hose, and we'll show you through that part. There's 3 different EcoCube installation kits, and we actually have a handy table on our website, which you can click here to get to, that matches up the spa with the EcoCube and the EcoCube connection kit, so it's really handy. So the EcoCube kit comes with 10 meters of hose. Each section of hose has a fitting like this, which is called a barrel union on it. One end will connect to your pump, your circulation pump in this instance, and the other end will connect back into the heater. This end doesn't have anything on it except for a hose connector at this point. This will have the fittings that connect to the EcoCube. We'll go onto here and we'll do that after we get this through the cabinet. This also has the lagging in here, or pipe insulation. And finally, there's an extra power adapter in case we've already taken up all of the power accessory outputs on the spa controller. So let's discuss the optimal positioning for your EcoCube. We recommend placing the EcoCube back to back with your spa for maximum efficiency and aesthetics. It can be installed away from your spa, but for the maximum efficiency, back to back is best. As you can see, you have several options for positioning, whether it's on the left, right, or back of the spa. Each location has its advantages, so choose the one that best suits your space and preferences. Remember, the EcoCube should be no more than 3 meters away from the circulation pump and no more than 1 meter above or below the base of the spa in height. You also want to consider what accessories you might have, like the cover lifter or the steps, because you don't want those to clash with the position of your heat pump. No matter where you position your heat pump, there's one thing that you really need to remember, and that is the pipework needs to be supported. Any issues caused by unsupported pipework can void the warranty. Depending on where you live, the compliance and requirements for where the heat pump is installed can be different, because it may create a climbable barrier around your spa pool. And this will impact your fencing requirements and other issues. So I highly recommend that you talk to your sales consultant and your local council before making the final decision where you're going to position your EcoCube heat pump. Now with this one, it's a back-to-back installation, so we're actually gonna have one that's gonna go through a cabinet panel up a little bit higher, and then the bottom one's gonna go through the base pan of the spa in low here. But if you were putting your heat pump out somewhere else, further away from the spa and not back-to-back, you might choose to go through a corner panel. The reason that that's a good idea for that is you can still get all the panels off without disconnecting the plumbing. Once we go through one of the panels, it becomes more challenging to take that panel off and to service the spa. So when you're considering your position, putting it underneath the keypad, which is where all the equipment lies, is probably not the best solution if you're going to go through the cabinet panel. Inside the spa, there's plumbing, framing, and electrical cables. So we have to make sure that wherever we're gonna drill through here, we're not gonna hit one of those. So it's a really good idea to undo the equipment bay cabinet panel and then look inside the spa to make sure that you're not gonna collide with something else before you start the installation process. The heat pump will actually drain off condensate at some time. So this is just water that will drip off and it catches in the pan of the heat pump. There is a drain port at the bottom of the heat pump, and this little part flicks up inside of there. Now, some people don't put this in, other people do. In some areas, it's required that this is actually plumbed to a wastewater drain. In other areas, it's not. So before installing your heat pump, it's a good idea to check with your sales consultant or your local council. And it's also important to note that this is usually not included in a standard heat pump installation. This is something that you'll probably need to have your plumber take care of. And this fitting comes with the heat pump. Also, when you're considering positioning your heat pump, you want to make sure it doesn't get too close to your boundary line, a neighbor's window, your bedroom window, and you also need to leave airflow around the heat pump. Please check the manual for the distance that's required for this before you choose the position of your heat pump. When considering the foundation, remember that you need a flat, level surface, like a deck, pavers, or concrete pad. In this installation, we've decided that we're going to put the heat pump here next to the side of the spa. The keypad is over there, and the steps will be in that area. We're going to go through this side panel and through the base pan with the bottom pipe. So now we're going to take the cabinet panel off and get started. Okay, so we have our two pieces of pipe that are out of the EcoCube connection kit. This side, which you can see, this fitting will go to the circulation pump. It will run through the inside of the spa, out through the cabinet, and come into the water inlet. This one will go from the outlet, and it'll go back, and this connects to the heater. You can see on both ends of each of the hoses, there is a hose clamp and nothing on the end of the hose. These fittings go onto these two blue fittings on the back of the EcoCube heat pump. You'll put these on first, and then you'll slide the hose over and tighten down the hose clamp. I've decided where I want to position the heat pump. We're going to put it on this side. This won't collide with any of the cover lifter that we might put on here. The steps are going to be around that side, so it's not in the way. We're just going to take a little bit of extra precaution to make sure that we don't hit any framing, any plumbing, or any cables. We're going to mark this out on the cabinet, so right where we're going to drill our holes, and then we're going to pull that cabinet panel off and have a look inside, put the panel back on, drill our holes, and then we'll be able to proceed from there. I'm just going to measure over from the center of the cabinet strip to the center of the hole, which in this instance is 360 millimeters. And then I'll take the cabinet panel off and make sure there's nothing in the way. We've marked our hole on the cabinet. We've actually looked inside to make sure there was nothing in the way as well. We put the cabinet panel back on and we're about ready to start drilling. And this is a power tip, which means don't do what we've done in the past or other people have, and drill your large hole with your hole saw before you create a smaller hole at the base of it to allow room for your cables. So what we do is we're gonna actually mark a hole right at the bottom of the larger hole, right down here. And we're gonna do the same at the top of this one. And we'll drill those holes before we drill the larger hole out with the 51 mil. Now that pipe is smaller than 51 mils. The 51 mils is to allow you a little bit of room and also to allow the pipe insulation to go through the cabinet. We've used a 50 mil hole saw in this installation, but we highly recommend that you use a 60 millimeter hole saw to make it easier to get the insulation and hose clamp through the cabinet wall. So we've drilled the holes, and now we have to put this in before we run any of the hose, or we won't have the room that we need to get this AMP connector through. So this one comes out of the bottom, so I'm just putting it through the bottom hole in the cabinet, and I'll reach in from the other side and I'll pull that through. This is the data cable, and I'm putting it through the top hole. And then I'll go around the other side and pull both the cables through. This spa has a number of accessories with it. It has lighting. It also has an audio Wi-Fi kit with it that needs power as well. Those all need to plug into the same output off of the controller. That's why we need to use a splitter. So what we want to make sure of is that we plug the heat pump into the primary splitter or the first splitter. And so this is the end that is going to go into the controller, and each of these would have something that's going to plug into them, one of the accessories. So I'm just going to plug the heat pump into one of those, and they can only go in one way, so there's no issue with getting them reversed. Now I'm going to plug the other splitter in, and now you can see how I have that laid out. This is going to plug into the controller. This is the heat pump. Then I'm going to plug in the lighting transformer to one of these, and lastly the audio Wi-Fi is going to go into this. So normally if we would open up this spa cabinet, it would have only had one splitter for the audio Wi-Fi and for the lighting. This extra splitter comes in the kit, in the EcoCube kit, and it's just for this purpose. We're getting ready to connect the data cable from the EcoCube into the SpaNet controller. Now, with this type of controller, it's over here on the right-hand side under this little panel, and there's 4 small screws, and a number 1 screwdriver is recommended. The data cable needs to be plugged into EXP2, which is the expansion port 2, and is right here. Route the cable down with the other cables and through the cable holder. And then you can put the cover back on. So now we're getting ready to feed the plumbing to the EcoCube heat pump through the inside of the spa from the heater and from the pump. One of the first things we want to do is to take these fittings off, these hose clamps off, which come on the hose, so that they don't get caught on anything. We also want to make sure that we don't get any debris or dirt or anything else, foam from inside the spa inside here, because it might end up coming out and clogging one of the jets in the spa when we're all done. This hose with the blue fitting on the end of it, this barrel union, is going to go on to the circulation pump. And I'm going to run this one through first because it goes to the bottom of the heat pump connector, or on the heat pump it's called the input. So I'm going to lay this out on the floor, and then I'm going to run it through the back of here and out through the hole to the heat pump. This is the fitting that connects the plumbing that goes to the EcoCube into the SpaNet heater. I'm going to run the plumbing through where I ran the other plumbing, so this pipe, over to the other side, and it's going to go out the top hole that we drilled and into the top part of the heat pump, which is the outlet. As mentioned before, the kit comes with 5 meters of hose for each run. So we have a total of 10 meters of hose. And you can see, because this is a back-to-back installation, we have quite a bit of extra hose here. And we don't really want to coil that up inside the spa pool or leave it outside. So I'm going to leave a gap between the spa and the EcoCube so that if needed, we can take the panel off and move it down the hose without actually having to disconnect the plumbing that's going to end up connecting to this point. So you can use a hacksaw for this, or you can use a handy PVC cutter like this, which is what I'm going to use. And you would just trim the hose off to the length that you want. And then we're gonna insulate this and then push the heat pump with this extra bit back inside, making sure not to crimp the hose. Now I'm going to slide the hose onto the fitting, and I'm going to tighten it down. So we've completed connecting the pipes to the EcoCube. Now all we have left to do with this is to put the lagging or pipe insulation on here. We only need a short section to get from the heat pump to the cabinet, because the rest of it's insulated inside of the spa, and so there's no temperature difference. We've now finished insulating the piping for the EcoCube. We pushed it up next to the spa where we want it. And one of the last things in this area is we'll want to fasten this down to our foundation. That concludes this part of it. Now we're going to go around and connect the last piece, which is connecting to the heater. This is the fitting that connects into the heater on the bottom of the SV controller. This is the gas that goes in it. You'll see that there's a ridge that runs on the inside. That goes here, and this face goes in towards the heater. So we're gonna push that back in, making sure that the gasket doesn't fall out. And these only have to be hand tight. Now, one final thing is we just want to check all of our hosing to make sure that we don't have any kinks in it. This is an example of a Fisher Spa that has a circulation pump, but a different controller than the SV controller we were showing you before. This is an SV mini controller. And you can see the controller here. It also has a different heater. Because of that, it requires a different installation kit. So the connection going out through the cabinet, everything else is the same with the full EcoCube installation that is in this video. However, you will need a different kit and it will connect up differently to these components. So make sure to check your spa model and the corresponding EcoCube connection kit. We've now completed the installation of the EcoCube heat pump and you're ready to save up to 70% on your heating bills. Plus, you're gonna be able to cool your spa in the hot summer months. Hopefully after this short video, you now understand what you need to consider when installing an EcoCube heat pump and you know how to do the installation itself. Thank you for watching.